Good afternoon and welcome to another exciting episode of the Art Block with Ant and Derek. I'm Ant.
And I'm Derek.
Good to see you again, Derek.
Same here.
All right, how was your last week?
Oh, it was pretty good.
Good. Kept busy?
Yes,
All right.
yes.
Stayed involved in the arts?
Definitely stayed involved in
All
arts. I guess maybe laundry must be part of the arts too, because I feel underdressed.
You look good. You look good.
Thank you.
Okay, well, so to sort of coincide with today's guest, who will be out a little bit later, we decided to talk a little bit about poetry today.
Oh, okay.
Not that I'm a world connoisseur on poetry. You know, I love some of the old classic stuff, of course. I have a little knowledge of poetry, but what about you? What's your take on poetry?
Well, I have very good. I love poetry. I love some of them have been very influential, like Sidney Lanier, who famous poet in Macon, Georgia. Ogden Nash is a very good one. Theodore Geisel, aka also known as Dr. Seuss.
Right.
Very good among kindergartners. Right. And they said Edgar Allan Poe as well.
Yeah, and Shakespeare, of course, a lot. And well, you brought up Sidney Lanier, so I wanted to touch on that a little bit. You know, Macon does have a pretty rich history of poets, or actually the Central Georgia area does.
Yes.
You know, we also have Seaburn Jones, Adrian Bond, Anthony Grooms, Judson Mitchum, David Bottoms, who won the Walt Whitman Award, I think in '79 it was, for his Bibb County Dump, his book of poetry called that. He's from, I believe, Canton, Georgia. But yeah, Macon does have a rich history of poets, and
yes.
And but I wanted to hit on something called slam poetry, because that also sort of connects with our guest. And for any of you out there that aren't familiar with slam poetry, it's poetry that's basically scored. It's a competitive poetry, and it's credited to Mark Smith back in '84, who apparently had the first slam poetry event in Chicago. He's credited with the founder, I guess, or the creator of it. I've seen it a few times. You know, I don't know a lot about it, but it's basically scored. It's on a scoring system. There's certain rules. Apparently, you can't use props. You can't use music. If you do that, it then becomes performance poetry, which is a whole nother genre.
Right.
So I hear. So apparently, you just have to use you have to either recite or read your original work, and it's scored by a group of judges, usually 5, that are picked out of the audience beforehand.
Right. Okay.
So the reason I'm bringing it up as this topic, as part of our topic, is there are as with any art, there's always critics with any art. There's the argument that is slam poetry art, and the naysayers on one side think no, it's almost like a sport, and you know, they think poetry is the antithesis of sports, right? Yes. You know what I mean? I mean, they look at that, which I thought that was kind of humorous when I read that, since, Central High School used to be called Lanier, and their mascots were the Lanier Poets. So I thought it was kind of funny, back in the day back in the day, you're at a football game, and their football team's the Lanier Poets.
Yes.
Hey, very manly. And
do I compare these to a summer's day?
Right.
And break.
That's right. But I thought that was kind of funny, because there were critics that say it's a sport that there's, you don't score art.
That's true.
Because
very true.
It's subjective, and it's the eye of the beholder.
Yeah, but can art be competitive? That's another.
Well,
I mean, art is basically a form of expression.
Right.
Not necessarily utilitarian.
Right. Expression, and also doing it in a way, a flowery way with language, a way where the themes. I mean,
because judo is a sport, but but I guess you'd say it's also art, because judo is a martial art.
Right. But, right. And that's another show.
Yeah.
We have a lot of shows where we can talk about the what's art, and with slam poetry, I personally think it would be art.
Okay.
Because you're still creating something.
Right.
You're creating something. You're using language in whatever manner to discuss themes of the present day, what people are going through, economic times. We've touched on that before. Anything that has to do with those those periods of our lives on this earth, is, I think can be considered artistic.
That's very true.
Because
Very true.
you're addressing what the times are.
Because I guess I guess what Gil Scott Heron would be, I guess that would be more performance because he used music in.
Right.
That wouldn't be exactly slam poetry.
Well, I mean, he might be a part of that. I know him more so, right, as a musician, of course, is what I've always known him as. But he might be. But you think it's art? I guess we agree.
Well, yes,
think
I
slam
agree.
poetry's art?
Yes. I mean, it is a form of expression, and poetry can be expressive many times. Whether you look to as Mark Smith as the slam poet, or Sidney Lanier, or Rakim from Arabian Rakim, especially one of my favorite lines in his debut album Paid in Full, in his very first song, rap song, my melody, where he says, "I get 7 MCs, put them in a line, then I get 7 more brothers who think they can rhyme, but it'll take 7 more before I go for mine, and that's 21 MCs that up at the same time." That's
All right,
wonderful.
there.
Yes.
Good deal.
Yes.
Okay, so any other ideas on poetry before we get out of here and get back with our guest?
Well,
Anything else you need to say? We agree it's an art.
yes.
Slam poetry is an art. We agree.
I guess we would definitely when we go meet our guests, I would like to know what would be the difference, or
Yeah, she'll tell us for sure.
because that seems to be quite interesting, like slam poetry, because it almost seems like a kind of like rap battle between
Rap
people,
battles? Rap
especially
battles. Okay, well, we got a couple minutes for a break here, so I wanted to bring up this this poet. I don't know if you ever heard of William McGonagall.
Mm-hmm.
This is actually a quite entertaining book, but he was a Scottish poet who's known to be, he's considered the world's worst poet, and
the world's worst.
yeah, he's
like the Ed Wood of poetry.
A very entertaining book, and there's actually a movie made about him with back in the '60s, maybe early '70s. Peter Sellers played him.
Oh, okay.
But I read this a few years ago, and I pulled it off the shelf before I came to the studio today because I thought we're talking poetry. But
Yeah, they do a remake. I can see Johnny Depp doing that as well.
yeah, well, that's funny you said that. Yeah, Tim Burton could do this one, but if I have a moment here, let me read the back cover here. It's the execrable rhymes, the terrible scansion, the ludicrous subject matter. Despite everything, William McGonagall remains one of Scotland's favorite poets. But they just said he was undeniably dreadful and sinking in new depths just when you thought you had hit a rock bottom. But it's a really funny book. Not necessarily promoting the book or the author because, they're not a sponsor of our show. But since we talked about poetry, look up William McGonagall. It's actually a good read, and he's actually was quite a character. So we're going to take a break now, and we will be back with our guest for today's episode, Yolanda Wyo Latimore. So stay with us, please.
we're back on the Art Block with our guest, Ms. Y.O. Latimore. So how are you?
Hi, I'm doing just fine, Derek.
Great.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Okay.
No problem. We
Okay.
couldn't do an art show without you.
Yes.
I know that's right. Okay.
So tell us, for any of you out in this area that don't know who Y.O. Latimore is, she's a poet, a activist, done some acting. She's done it all. And tell us a little bit, Y.O., how and why you got started in the poetry movement.
Well, I was attending Georgia College, which is now Georgia College and State University down in Milledgeville, Georgia. And I was taking an, extracurricular course, and it
Right.
was about theater. And I asked my professor, we were watching comedy, which was Greater Tuna. You familiar with Greater
Oh, yes,
Tuna?
yes.
So I said, are we going to watch some comedy like The Jeffersons or Good Times? And he says,
Okay.
there is no such thing as black theatrics. And that just kind of, it
Wow.
got me started as a poet, as
Right.
as an activist, because I went to the Black Student Alliance. I went to the dean of arts and sciences,
Right.
and I actually knew him. Little did my professor know. And not that gave me an advantage, but I mean, he knew that I was passionate about asking, were we going to have, black comedy? And I didn't want to be insulted by a professor, so that started it all. Well, that ignited it all.
Right.
Because as a youngster, I've always read, and I've been my father's personal secretary. And when you look at poetry, a lot of people don't think of just standing up and performing poetry, but it actually predates literacy, which is, comes in all kinds of forms.
Right.
So.
Right. So what was the title of the first poem you wrote? Do you remember? And how old were you?
The first poem I wrote, I was a freshman, or was that my sophomore year in college? So I was about 18 or 19.
Right.
And it was called,
Put you on the spot.
oh Lord, I can tell you the first line of it. It's big lips, broad noses, wide hips, curved butts.
Okay.
And I can't quite remember the
Right.
name of it, but
So-
I have written a lot of poetry since then.
All right. So looking back at that poem now, are you happy with it?
I am.
Do you still think it stands up, or have you just, a lot of artists look back and they see their early works and they're like, God, I've gotten so much better. I was so young and wet behind the ears then. Do you look at it that way, or did you see it as something you're still really proud of?
I'm still proud of it.
Right.
And I can still perform it today. It's relevant today.
Right.
And a lot of my poetry is because it's kind of social.
Right,
And,
right.
most social things are related to the economy,
Exactly.
education,
Right.
religion,
Right.
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 military, government, or whatever. And therefore, those things don't go out of style.
Yeah.
They
Right.
just
Right.
kind of repeat, or we
Right.
learn from them, and we get better.
Were the poetry that you made back then, you said there were some relevance to it now. Are there any differences compared to then as to now?
Well, you know what I learned? Now I get a chance to do a little name dropping. And it's fun because as a youngster, I traveled a lot. And going to college, where you should be more focused on your studies, I learned a lot of people who are still in my life now, or I reconnect with, that connected me to other cities, and actually it connected me globally. And one thing I learned, there was the National Black Arts Festival, which is in Atlanta. And I think we should get something like that together here, you guys. And maybe
Okay.
the Art Block could be the start. But anyway, I met the Last Poets. And one of my friends was from, South America, Gambia. No, where is it? This
Guatemala?
is geography now.
Somewhere in South America.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I can't. Belize. He was from Belize, and
Okay.
and he was a truck driver in America, and he
Right.
gave me these tickets. He's like, oh, some poets are, and I don't know where he got them from. And it was in Little Five Points. I lived on Edgewood Avenue in Atlanta, and I could almost walk there, but he came and he drove me there in the big rig and dropped me off
Right.
at the little Variety Playhouse. And guess who I met? The Last Poets, Derek Gilbert, he really wasn't a poet. He's a professor of sociology, but he met Quincy Jones and he wrote this book of poetry and did this poetry CD. I met Sonia Sanchez. And actually from the Variety Theater, the Variety Playhouse, they took me to the Renaissance Theater Hotel, which a lot of activities were going on there. That's where I met Sonia Sanchez and a host of other authors and poets and people who were part of the Harlem Renaissance and just movements, period.
Right.
And one thing they told me was not because of my poetry performances, but as advice, was just not to preach to people. So that's one thing I've learned. I try not to tell people what to do in my poetry. I just, when you say something like that, well, how will we know? But it does help you in your writing because no one wants to be preached
Lectured.
to or lectured to, and all of us make mistakes. And the best way to kind of help with healing is to share the mistakes, share enough for us to have discussion. To ignite the thought of things that have realistically happened, and that's how I use my poetry.
So you're also the founder of Poetic Peace, which has been going on around Macon, for maybe 7 years now?
Since 2003.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
over
yeah.
9 years.
Yeah, 9 years, yeah. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about Poetic Peace, how it came about, and
Well, it was Mr. Larry Von Wiltshire, I can remember, and Mr. Charles Howard. They owned this establishment called the Jazzplex on Cherry Street. It was 473 Cherry Street, I think. And Mr. Larry was like, "Yeah, girl, come and do some of that poetry stuff." And the club was very nurturing. The venue was nurturing, and they wanted it as something to bring people to their club that wouldn't normally come. And that was the start of it. Most people think of us at the nightclub spots, but we're in the museums and schools. We're really taking it to another level now.
Right.
And of course we're still doing the nightclub spots. Like now we're at the Foul Play every Tuesday night.
Right.
8:30 sign in, and we get started about between 9 and 9:15. It's very informal and laid back, and it's for poets. It's for poets and other artists to network and brand themselves and put themselves out there. So we're very fortunate to work with this new venue.
Right. And it's promoted quite a bit, so if you're interested in going to one of these events, just look it up in the local paper, magazines, flyers, are out and around. We're going to take a break in a minute here, and when we come back, Wyo, we want to get your opinion on slam poetry.
Okay.
And we also, if you don't mind, we would like to get you to maybe perform one of your pieces for us.
No problem.
All right. We'll be back and enjoy some of these wonderful commercials here on Macon TV, WPGA.
Return to Wellston with Solid Ground, the complete first season on DVD.
No way, that's awesome.
The 4-disc set includes all 12 episodes plus cast and crew interviews, behind-the-scenes featurettes, outtakes, and more.
Works for me.
That was easy. Let's get to watching.
Filmed in Middle Georgia, see what the Telegraph called a humorous take on the detective series. Own Solid Ground, the complete first season today.
And we're back on the art block with our guest, Ms. Wyo Latimore. So, Wyo, what are your views on I guess, slam poetry, and is it a very popular type of poetry done in your venues?
It is in major areas, but it's sad to say that Macon hasn't picked it up. Our little community of artists and poets aren't familiar with it, so therefore I've used some grant monies that I've received to promote slam poetry with incentives like cash prizes, and I've also applied for some in the future because it's something that's competitive, so you really have to be into it. It's like if you take it as a hobby or as a sport. Everybody's not a slam poet, and it's just that simple. But it's competitive. It's edgy. It's edgy.
Right.
You have to be very straightforward, and just slam it on the people to where they feel it and they really get your poet.
What is, how different it is compared to regular spoken word and...
Regular spoken word, open mic, you sign up, you can sing, you can be a comedian. And actually comedians and different people, rappers can do slam poetry. They just have to abide by the rules. So they would have to do their piece a cappella without any props. And that's how they would have to project their message, 3 minutes with a 10-second grace period.
Okay.
And I really would love for Macon to grasp the slam poetry, but we don't really have a big poetry community right now. And although, you know, I guess our population, the diversity, the way the people being knowledgeable of it, business owners, our government, you know, and they will support it more once we get the momentum, keep it going.
Right. Are there certain rules though in slam poetry? I'm not that familiar with it, as I've said. I've seen it a couple of times, but is there certain rules as to what words you use? Is vulgarity allowed, or is that more so frowned upon, or it's just, since you are basically competing and somewhat attacking in an artistic way?
It's not so much attacking because it's
Well, I mean attacking the subject.
Right.
I didn't necessarily mean
Gotcha.
I didn't mean attacking the person you're going against or people. I meant it's more of a, I guess I look at it, I would imagine it's more of a sort of direct offensive.
in your face.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I was wondering, is it frowned upon if it gets vulgar? Is it frowned upon
When
if
it becomes,
gets sort of,
I guess, when it comes trash
Right.
talking rather than just
Right.
It depends on, if you have these 3 basic fundamental rules from like the National Poetry Incorporation, that 3 minutes, 10-second grace period, no props,
Right.
and no
No music, no costumes,
music,
right.
and I think I'm leaving one out. But anyway, you have those basic fundamental rules, and then you can customize it however
Right.
you want. So a church could do a
Right.
poetry slam. High schools do poetry slams.
Right.
So of course they wouldn't have vulgarity in those.
Right,
You have some
right.
poetry slams that the theme is sex. and
Oh, yeah,
vulgar.
okay,
You know, I mean, so
okay.
this applies to open
Okay.
mics and to slams.
Well,
you
that's
know.
good then. That's
So
good.
yeah, so it just depends on who's throwing it, where it
Right.
is. So if we're at the Tubman, of course, we're at the
Right.
Tubman Museum, we wouldn't have the
Right.
sex poetry or
Right.
the vulgar
Right.
because you have folks there with their family. But then you have some places where it's all goes because everyone's an adult and that's the atmosphere and that's the venue.
Yeah.
But yeah, the rules are. I mean, it's just trying to get people to structure their poetry and maybe
Right.
even help people write better, become better writers
Right.
with slam
I see.
poetry. It's just a tool and a technique.
So no topics are off limits, basically,
no
ever,
topics.
which is fine. It should be that way.
No
I mean,
topics,
that's the way
no
art
issues.
should be. In my
Right.
right. Okay. Well, if you don't mind, we would love to have you perform a piece for us.
Okay.
We would be honored. And so, let's go to Wyo.
Ghetto, capital G. Born into this world, and little did we know. Label us a thug, and we're from the ghetto. Money, 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 and we've got to get more. Who's out there that ain't got to get the dough? Boot camp, jail, prison, penitentiary. We're on the plantation 21st century. Slave master nowadays is the po-po. Penal system steps to us and opens his doors. 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4. They send us down the roads. We have to work for free. The ghetto's where they breed us. Through media they feed us and teach us how to spend. Only in America, ghetto capital G. We've got to pay to play when we're rolling dirty.
The Art Block with Ant and Derek is brought to you in part by Trot Harris. The Art Block is keeping the arts alive in Middle Georgia. If you'd like to sponsor the Art Block, send us an email to harrisland4@yahoo.com or find us at facebook.com/artblocktv.
Return to Wellston with Solid Ground, the complete first season on DVD.
No way, that's awesome.
The 4-disc set includes all 12 episodes plus cast and crew interviews, behind-the-scenes featurettes, outtakes, and more.
Works for me.
That was easy. Let's get to watching.
Filmed in Middle Georgia, see what the Telegraph called a humorous take on the detective series. Own Solid Ground, the complete first season today.
And we're back on the Art Block with our guest, Y.O. Latimore. Thank you for your performance.
You're welcome.
And for your appearance. So while we wrap up here, Wyo, let us know what's going on for you besides the poetic peace nights at Foul Play every Tuesday. What else is going on?
Well, what we're working on now with Parks and Recreation, City of Macon Parks and Recreation is getting some youth slam poetry slams going on.
Right.
And also with the Bibb County Board of Education, we'd like to do a lot more with them. I've actually read the strategic plan, and I think it's something for everyone in the community. I mean, if they take the plan and take it and apply themselves to it, we can make it work. So we like to work with our children in the public school system as well.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming on the Art Block with us.
You're welcome.
Yes.
We appreciate it. Good luck to you in your endeavors. And we thank you for watching, as always, here on Macon TV WPGA every Saturday at 12:30 p.m. Again, thanks to our sponsors. I'm Ant.
And I'm Derek. Check our Facebook page and see us next time. And don't forget to support the arts.